Yo, what is poppin', ladies and gents? It's your boy Stef Bryant back here again with another video. We are going to be talking about Unordinary and John's aura manipulation, somewhat explaining it, but more just like going into the detail and just talking about it. So let's just hop right into it. So we already know that the basics of his ability are: 1. He samples the auras of those whose abilities around him are activated. 2. He can amp the ability by 1.5 times. 3. The higher the level of the ability, the longer it will take to learn. 4. He can potentially hold 4 abilities, or they depend on the level of the ability, because maybe low level abilities are easier for him to hold. So when this is already just something that I did by myself, it probably doesn't mean anything, but it probably can. So when he was fighting against the Royals, Remy, Blake, Aizen, and Arlo, he didn't copy Arlo's ability because he already copied Zeke's ability beforehand, but he had Remy's, Zeke's, Blake's, and Aizen's. So when I did the math, it would have been 5.4 being Remy, plus 4.4 being Aizen, plus 4.5 being Blake, then 4.2 being Zeke. Those are just the numbers that it said on the hierarchy numbers. So they could be accurate, but they may not be. And then that would equal up to 19.5. Then what I did was I multiplied that by 1.5 and I got to 29.5. So what we potentially know, we don't know this is 100% fact, but this is just somewhere around there. He can hold maybe somewhere around the 30-ish mark for like when it comes to amping the abilities plus adding them all together. So maybe somewhere around there is where he can hold. So we could just go with that for now, but this is not 100%. This is just something that I discussed I just like seen by myself, so I don't know if it's 100% correct, but like we could just go with that. So don't go around just saying that Stef Bryant said this and this has to be correct now. And then we also know that he has never there are abilities that he's never successfully copied, such as Claire's clairvoyance. But this is the thing about that ability that I definitely want to note, is that Claire can't activate her own ability whenever she wants. So adding the factor that her ability has like randomness to it, that probably plays a role. You could also say that he's never copied Junie or Judy's ability, whatever her damn name is, the girl with the green hair and the gold eyes. But this is one thing that people also have to take into account. Maybe he didn't need her ability. Yes, we talked about it, that when they were fighting, she says that it didn't look like he copied her ability, but he was fighting purely off of like reactions. So that's one thing. But this is also the thing, is like maybe he didn't need her ability because he knew he was gonna win regardless, because she didn't have any combat ability from what we've seen. She's not able to really fight hand to hand with him. So why would he need her ability at that point? When we saw it first, he actually activated his ability. He didn't copy her ability. He just had his eyes glowing. He didn't have an ability on hand at that point, potentially. But then after they went to the cafeteria, he copied 2. He copied that fast guy, and then he copied that the Heinz ketchup for like the strong punch or whatever. I don't know, some stuff like that. So there's that. And then of course what we already know, John's ability level is 7. This was 2 years ago when he was the king of New Boston. There's no saying that it hasn't gone up. We don't know that whether or not it's gone up. A lot of people tend to believe that because John hasn't used his ability for 2 years, that probably hasn't gone up, or that it probably is decreased. But this is the thing, we don't know if abilities can decrease. You might be able to relate it to real life, but Uru-chan has not 100% confirmed this. So we could just say that his abilities stay at 7, potentially. But we also got to remember, in those 2 years or a year that John didn't use the ability, either one of those two, I don't exactly remember which one it is, John has been training. John has been training his physicality. And when an ability like John's, who can mimic abilities that obviously increase your physical strength, he definitely had to train his body so he could handle those types of abilities. Like, you think he would be able to just copy, from what we see in one of them right here, it'll be on the screen. John took on every challenge he possibly could, and then remember when it showed that he punched the ground, and then he was like, that hurt like hell. Maybe if you strengthen the rest of your arm, the recoil won't affect you as much. Bop. Alright, nice. We got that out the way. So we already see that strengthening his body would have been a huge part of mastering his ability. and that's what he did. You don't just have to use your ability to master it. Specifically with John didn't master his ability 100% just by copying everybody's abilities. He had to study abilities. He had to study and observe. We see in the recent chapters that yes, he does copy abilities and he fights people with their own abilities against them. But that's not the 100% reason he would win, because it wouldn't really make sense. If he just copied everybody's ability that he possibly could, you'd think he would just win, because like if he did copy their ability, wouldn't they be like equal? No, he also had hand-to-hand combat. He would end up with more hand-to-hand combat experience, along with the fact that he strengthened his body. So those probably give him an edge. On top of that, it was like, we already know that strengthening your body does increase your ability level. That's what we just like been told throughout the webtoon chapters. I don't exactly remember the chapter, but if some of y'all find it, then it'd be very helpful if like you just like tell me what it is and link it down below. So that'd be like freaking amazing. But yes, so we can't really 100% say that John is at a 7.0. It might be higher. So because if he trained this physical ability, and now he was already in high school, but he's fighting more competition at Wellston because they have the highest amount of ability. They have the highest amount of high tier ability users. Then what do you think? He's always going to be running into abilities like such as Aizen's Hunter ability, which definitely requires a lot of strength for the recoil, because like that strong punch or whatever. I don't exactly remember. Or Zeke's ability, the defensive form and the offensive form. Like we've seen the physical things that he's done with that ability. There's been so many abilities that we've seen that it required him to have like to be physically, like I wouldn't say fit, but he had to be at like a specific physical level. From what we know, it says it right here. Aura flows throughout us naturally, and as we activate our ability, and it's a self-regulated system. But John can manipulate his to make it so he's stronger than somebody else's. So the simpler the ability, the easier it is for him to use. Anything complex or high level will take him longer to learn. So we also learned that as we talk about his ability, obviously he's able to manipulate the output of the aura. That's why when he amplifies it, that's what we know. So he amplifies the ability. That's just more like him, like amping up the amount of aura that he has. The way from what we can pretty much infer from this is that if John can definitely improve, because he's at a 7. Obviously he can improve. Everybody can improve. We don't actually know what the max level is. We don't 100% know if there even is a max level on the chart. Maybe it goes up to 10. Maybe it goes up higher than that. But from what we know, that when you add all these ability levels together and then you multiply them by 1.5 with the amp, obviously you get a higher level than 10. So there must be something that correlates with that. But going back to what I was talking about. What was I talking about? Right. So going back to the thing with John's improvement when it comes to his ability. I think obviously over time when he does improve, if there is improvement, we don't know if he's improved yet. He probably has, but we haven't talked about it. Because we can't say for sure that he's only at a 7 right now. He's been using his ability on a consistent basis for like, we could say about like maybe 2 to 3 months. His first case obviously being back when Arlo took him out back to the desert. That's the first time actually that's technically not the first time. He definitely activated it like when he was fighting those kids in the alleyway, but he didn't use it. And we can also make a case for when him and Seraphine were walking home and he was able to sense aura. So that's one thing we could probably also add to his ability list, that he's able to sense aura even without his ability being active. So that's probably another thing. We can probably confirm this just from the fact that when Aizen was listening to him and Cecile talk, he was like shh, and then he knew that Aizen was behind the wall. Maybe he can just sense it when somebody's ability is active. He could just sense their aura without even activating his own. But yes, okay, so like 100%, like this time let's just go back to what he can improve on. So 1.5 times is the amp, but he could probably improve over time that amplifier from a 1.5 to maybe a 2 or so, or 3. We don't know. That could definitely go up when it goes to mastery of his ability. Or he can hold more abilities if the case is that he can only hold 4. If he can only hold 4, then he wouldn't. Then obviously, of course, that shit can eventually increase up to 5 or 6 with mastery of his ability. But if it matters on the type of ability level, and he can only hit up to a specific number, right here I'm just guessing is like about 30. maybe that can increase to like 40, so he can like, it doesn't matter about how many abilities he has. Maybe the question is, how many abilities he can hold, but how high of a level he can get to with the amount of abilities he has. So he could probably hit a 40 with a bunch of low level ability. My bad, I'll hit a 30 with a bunch of low level abilities. Say he can copy like 10 of those, compared to copying a bunch of high level abilities, which he can only hold less of. It could be something like that. So we don't know the answer, but it could be either one of those. Maybe he increases the amount of level of points that he could hold when it comes to like adding them all and then amplifying it, or honestly, the amplifier probably doesn't matter in the case of this. So, or it can. It doesn't. I can't really say. But if it just matters with how many ability he adds up without adding the amp, it would be around 20, because like when you added up all the Royals abilities that he fought on the same day, it was at 19.5, so it'd probably be around 20. So you can increase that. You get what I'm saying. So, and of course, his ability is not all that matters when it comes to these fights at Wellston, because you've seen this for yourself. He's beaten up people with abilities while activating his own. He's used hand-to-hand combat. A lot of these students at Wellston, we already know that yeah, you could say that they have an ability. They're probably like a mid-tier or a high-tier, but they're not strong in hand-to-hand combat. They definitely aren't. Not everybody out here has hands like Blake and Eisen or John. And I could kind of make this case for like Seraphina being one of those. I don't care what you guys say. Seraphina do not got hands. She does not have hands. She can't box with these guys. And I'm not saying that because she's a girl. It's because from what we've seen, when she lost her ability, I'm kind of getting off track, but just go with it. When she lost her ability, she wasn't able to defend herself because she hasn't fought in so long. We already know from elementary school that she hasn't fought. Because after she finally got her ability, she started putting all her resources into just strengthening her ability. And that comes with the case of she relied so heavily on her ability that she neglected hand-to-hand combat. And then finally, before getting kidnapped, she wanted to learn how to fight from John. She had to get back stamina, because she definitely didn't have stamina. If you have to rely on your ability and time manipulation, you move at your own time. So, of course, like, no pun intended. And you could just knock somebody, like, you just beat the shit out of somebody. But relating this to what John has, John's hand-to-hand combat plays a huge role in his ability. I was talking to one of the guys in my Discord, and if you haven't joined my Discord, by the way, join that shit down below. That description will be in the description in the comment section. So join that if you really want to like talk about it. We were talking about this, and he was like, "What do you think?" I brought up the question because he talked about we probably have a better John if it was him from 2 years ago, like a stronger John. If it was him from 2 years ago at New Boston when he was king at Wellston now. And I said this, he probably would be weaker because he's not as good at fighting. You know why? And you know why this is what makes sense to me. Yes, he would be at a 7. Okay, they're probably like around the same level. But this would be the case. You think he would be able to, like, in those years, those 1 or 2 years, I'm sorry about like not knowing exactly the number, but like just go with that. 1 to 2 years, that's what we do know. In that 1 to 2 year gap, that no, he took a year off, and then he went 2 years without using his ability, like just holding his ability or all that stuff, like holding his ability to himself. In those years that he did not use his ability, he just trained his hand-to-hand combat with his dad. We've seen this in like when he talks about his father and like Unordinary and how it helped him and all that stuff, why he doesn't use his ability in his past. John is still strong. Don't let this fool you. John would still be strong if the New Boston version of him was here. He would still be strong, of course. But like the fact that training your physical does have a big impact on your ability does matter. John we have now wouldn't be as dominant if he didn't have these hands that he has now. If you put the John from before, he'd arguably not be able to accomplish the same exact feats that he does now. Because the John we have now is definitely stronger physically. His body can handle more. So that's one thing he could definitely put to the test. This is one thing we don't know though, and this was a good point that came to me earlier when we were talking. It was like, when did John learn that he could actually hold multiple abilities? Because he didn't do it when he was fighting against Zarian, the king of New Boston, before he became king. He didn't do that. He only used Zarian's ability, if that's how you pronounce his name, whatever. He only used his ability against him. But there was definitely a gap between after he fought Zarian and he fought his graduating class. So we know he wasn't able to do that. He probably wasn't able to do it then when he was fighting Zarian, but he was definitely able to do it when he was fighting the graduating class. There is no way he beat the entire, his entire class. There's no way he beat his entire class, 30 plus kids, with just using one ability. There's no way. He definitely had to copy those. So around that time, he definitely learned how to do it. That's the one thing with aura manipulation. Like, I like his ability so much just because it comes with so many benefits. The fact that he can hold multiple abilities and amplify, that already gives you an edge, because that means you'll never really be even with the person that you're fighting. You'll always pretty much have the edge over them in ability level. That's the one thing that will always happen. But this is something that we definitely need to talk about, is what is the limits of John's ability? What can he copy? I think it definitely has to go with what he can copy. When it comes to clairvoyance, obviously because of the randomness of it, he can't copy that. We don't know if he can copy Judy's ability. But this is the one thing we do need to get out of the way. John's ability doesn't rely on physical feedback. This is not the case, because if that was the case, he wouldn't have been able to copy Eisen's ability. We learned in the recent chapters it has to do with the aura. So just as long as they have their ability activated, he'll be able to sample your aura. But obviously it comes with the higher level your ability is, all that extra stuff. Yes sir, yes sir. If that is the thing, then it'll probably take him a little bit longer. But this comes with the fact that he studies abilities on a regular basis. When he was doing those training arcs, he was studying ability like madman. He was fighting anybody he could. He knows countless abilities. That's why he's able to copy so many abilities so easily. It's such as when he fought Blake. Blake was surprised when he used all of those 5-finger blasts on both of his hands. Blake was like, I can only do this with 3. And then he over time finally learned how to. I don't think did he finally learn how to do it in his fight against those guys. I don't remember, but he even says it to himself. So somebody who's only used that for the first time cannot do that. Even if he amplified his ability, amplifying the ability doesn't mean he's able to just use high level techniques straight off the bat. It means that he's able to use a stronger version of it. That's what it means. So don't get it twisted. John has skills when it comes to his ability. And aura manipulation, just because he can copy their ability doesn't mean he has access to everything that they could do. Such as, say he can fly. Imagine John flying. Man would be super John, crazy. Say you could fly and you can move super fast. Maybe John, and that's the first time John has ever seen that. John is not going to be able to move super fast straight off the bat because he's probably never done that before. But he studied so many abilities that he probably thinks of things to do with them, or he's probably seen people do this stuff. So we can't say that John created this thing with the 5 fingers, like the blast and all that. So he's definitely seen somebody do it. That's a huge component of his ability. He has to study and observe, and I think that's definitely what he's been doing at Wellston. But all the people that he's fought, people gotta remember he has fought with Serafina before, not him activating his ability, but he's seen her activate her ability on numerous occasions, and he's definitely observing. You can't say he's not, because when he was training Serafina, he tells her, always observe your opponents and your surroundings, and that's what he does. So that's one component of his, it's not really a component of his ability, but it's a component of what helps his ability grow. He has to continuously observe those around him and just figure out how to use their ability. He's also there's also the case of, has he been studying afterwards other abilities? He's definitely seeing fights on a regular basis, so that could be studying in its own way. He's definitely studying for school, of course, but this is what we do know about aura manipulation from what I've been talking about so far. What are we lacking? I think what we're lacking is obviously the component of, we don't know what he can't copy. We don't know the limitations of his ability. We know the limitations of of possibly either one, how many abilities he can hold, or two, how many like the level of abilities that he can hold, like as in like does it accumulate to a certain number and then he can't go past that, or there's actually a set number of abilities that he can't go past. So maybe he can copy 4 abilities and that's actually his max. Or is it that he can copy as many abilities as he wants until it hits a specific number? That's like the one thing that we do need to find out eventually. There's also the case of, can he copy Seraphina's abilities? What a lot of people want to wonder. And I say, why wouldn't he be able to? Seraphina's ability has physical feedback, even though that doesn't matter. But the case is, if she doesn't knock him out, there's nothing stopping him from copying her ability. Because then he would just copy her ability and then amplify it. Because he's seen it enough to probably know how to do it. Just to say that. Because like it's not like she's the only person with her ability. There probably has to be more, because obviously her family has it. So it's definitely around somewhere. Who's to say that her ability is probably not like famous? It definitely is, because we talk about throughout the story that her family's like high class or whatever. So maybe he has seen her ability before, and he's probably studied it. Because they weren't always on a good page. So we don't know if he has. But I'm getting a little bit off track. Sorry about that. So what have we really learned so far? We know what John's capabilities are so far, and the fact that he probably isn't rusty at all, and the training that he's done definitely has contributed to his ability level. He's probably at a higher level than we really think. From what we know, apparently the hierarchy chart is still accurate. I refuse to believe that, because we haven't seen that chart in like close to 100 chapters. So I refuse to believe that bullshit. I really do. He's probably higher than that. I would say maybe close to a 7.5, if not close to an 8. I'm just being serious, because he's been using his ability on a regular basis, and he's been like really definitely maxing out. So, well, maybe not even maxing out, but he's definitely been pushed. He definitely pushed his ability to a really like pushed it to the extremes when he was fighting against the Royals. But that's really what I have to say about his ability. If you agree with me, you can comment down below. If there's anything that I really missed or that you want to know, I can make a part 2 to this, talking about it after we learn more. So other than that, I hope y'all liked it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, comment down below, and I definitely will be doing a video on Seraphina versus John soon. Actually, maybe right after this, but I don't know when I'll release it. But if you guys do want to see that, comment down below and join the Discord. Peace.